we continue, this is the fun part about dragging out a renovation project. We keep getting surprised months and months later. So this weekend, we get the communion rail. Was this up last weekend? It wasn't, right? Okay, I wasn't here last weekend, so I just wanted to make sure. I knew it was new, and I thought it was that new. So now we have this awesome communion rail here, and it's kind of cool that it comes, of all Sundays, this Sunday. Because in the gospel today, we're hearing the story about Christ multiplying the loaves and the fishes. And of course, all the church fathers who have read this always saw this as a prefigurement of the Eucharist. It sounds similar even to some of the words that the priest says when we're consecrating the bread and wine at the altar. It says, taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven. That's one of the lines in the Eucharistic prayer 1. He said the blessing, he broke the loaves, he gave them to his disciples. Does that sound familiar? It's all reminiscent of the Eucharist. It's a foreshadowing of him when he's going to feed us not only just with earthly food to feed our bodies, but something even deeper, the heavenly food that we all need. And this kind of brings us to the communion rail. So the communion rail is interesting. On the one hand, it forms a barrier. It forms a divide between you and me, not between you and me, but between the nave of the church and the sanctuary, the place where God dwells. And a piece of you might think, well, that doesn't seem right. I thought God is supposed to be with us. God's supposed to be here, amongst us. This is an old-fashioned idea, this kind of idea of no, there has to be this split divide, between us and the world and everything going on in heaven. And yet we don't put it up. The church never put up a communion rail to try to make a statement or something. The church put up the communion rail because it's real. There is a separation between me and God. And thank goodness. There's a difference, perhaps I should say, between me and God, between this world and heaven. And thanks be to God there is, right? Because this world ain't perfect. And I'm not perfect. I'm fallen. I'm sinful. But God is perfect. Any of us who have ever sinned in any way, big or small, but have really felt it, did something wrong, and then afterwards you realize how that impacted someone or how that was wrong. And that kind of almost dirty feel that I feel. You know what I'm talking about? That kind of feeling that we have of, oh, I feel that sin. That's the recognition of what this communion rail speaks of, that there's a difference between the world and heaven, between us and God. But the amazing thing about this communion rail, this image of that separation between God and us, is this little door right here. That this is not a barricade. That actually, because of the incarnation, because Jesus decided to come down, because God decided to step out of the sanctuary into the nave, where we all are, all of a sudden, God comes to us. That different thing, that holy thing, that thing that when I feel my sin, I think there's no way I should ever even have it. God, I don't even want you near me right now because I feel the badness of this thing that I've done. And I can't hardly stand being with it myself, let alone you coming near me. Stay away. And he says, no, that's right where I want to be. Did God come born in a palace somewhere? No. He specifically chose a manger. He specifically chose the dirtiness of a barn to show that there is no dirty spot of my life that he doesn't want to enter into. And this communion rail marks now forever the fact that Jesus wants to come down to us. And isn't it cool that the way he comes to us most fully in this world is in the Eucharist? And where do we receive the Eucharist? Right here. Right at that meeting point between heaven and the world. And isn't it cool, too, that the beauty of the sanctuary, even though there's a lot more gold, there's a lot more blue, there's a lot more cool stuff going on up here, it's bleeding out into the nave, right? Like this whole path down the middle. If you look at the hatch pattern of the floor up here, it matches the center aisle. God's grace comes pouring out through that center door. We come up here with all of our sinfulness, all of our dirtiness, everything going on in our lives, and we say, Jesus, I need you. And he says, perfect, because I want to come to you right here. To do again what he did 2,000 years ago and do it in an even more personal way. I want to come into you. I want to reside in you. So we ask him today, Jesus, make my heart ready for that. Jesus, when you came 2,000 years ago, you did lots of awesome things. You raised people from the dead. You cured a bunch of people. You performed cool miracles. You did all of this awesome prophecies. People were like, holy cow, who is this guy? He speaks unlike our scribes and Pharisees. He speaks with authority. And yet what still happened 2,000 years ago? At a certain point in the Gospel of John, at the Bread of Life discourse, we hear that most of them left him because what he was saying was too much for them. We can be this close to Jesus and still not let him touch us if we're afraid and if we keep our hearts closed. So today we want to say, Jesus, prepare my heart to receive you here. And if I can't receive you here today, Lord, prepare my heart to get here so that I can receive your forgiveness in the confessional, so that I can come to you in the way that you want me to, so that we can dwell together, so that I'm not left alone with the dirtiness of my soul, but Lord, that I can actually have the courage to receive your love even in that worst spot of my heart, and to let you transform it into something wholly new.